introduce you to the presenters. We have from the dorm, Dr. Amanda Fialk, who's my partner and chief of clinical at the dorm, as well as Sarah Harte, who is our director down in DC. As far as the presentation, it will roughly run about 45 minutes or so, followed by a Q&A. If you have any questions during the presentations, please go ahead and post them in the chat box, and we will certainly do our best to get to all questions. Should we miss any, we're going to be following up with a thank you note, and we'll give everyone our personal information so you can follow up directly and keep the conversation going. On that note, why don't I ask Meredith to cue up the slides and turn it over to Beck.
Awesome. Oh, thanks, John. Hi, everyone. Good to be here today. My name is Beck Gee-Cohen, and got to do this, it must have been a month ago, I guess now, and how the world has changed even in a month. So grateful to talk about these issues around COVID and what's happening in the LGBT world. We'll just start. I'm gonna kind of move this a little bit so I can see. So obviously, you know, what's happening in the world today with COVID and the pandemic, you know, has really isolated many people, many of us included, and what we're really seeing for the LGBT community specifically is increased isolation and, you know, losing the ability to connect on a level that is, you know, in real life. And over the last couple of weeks, now that it's Pride Month, you know, we're about halfway through Pride Month, and obviously what's happened in the last couple of weeks in the world is that what we forget about, and I just kind of want to plug this, is that what we forget about is that Pride in and of itself started as a protest, and started by Black, trans, Black and Latinx women who really kind of were at the forefront of the LGBT movement. So the LGBT movement as it stands today was really started as a protest June 28th, 1969 at Stonewall. And so, you know, I think I've been in this place of like celebration of like, yes, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about Black and brown lives. We're talking about LGBTQ lives. We're talking about, you know, what needs to change in the world. And then we're all doing this with this umbrella of having to stay at home and having to socially distance, or at least try to. And it's just, I mean, it's an amazing time to be alive. And I really believe that it's like what to really question ourselves, like, what are we doing? What do we need to do? What are we doing in this world? So I definitely wanted to kind of bring that to the forefront too, because, you know, 4 weeks ago when we were talking about this, we were only talking about, you know, the global pandemic. And now, you know, we have obviously added struggles and issues and things that are happening in our world. So, but for the LGBT community at large, you know, what's happening and what I'm seeing as a clinician and with people that I work with is that, you know, that people are not getting the treatments that they need, specifically trans folks. They're having their affirming healthcare like limited. It's unpredictable. It's not being accessed as well as it used to be. You could change this slide here. Thanks. It's kind of weird not writing my own slides, but I thank you, Meredith, for catching up with me. But what we are seeing is compounded social isolation. You know, a lot of LGBT folks do find communities online for sure. And the unfortunate thing is what we're seeing is that many LGBTQ resources are actually in person. And so what happens for for a person who's part of this community, a marginalized community specifically, is that um, you know the power of the community is kind of taken away. It makes us more isolated, and so as we know that global prides have been canceled, where specifically many with the teens that I work with, many of them coming out for the first time. This is like you know a rite of passage to go to Pride and to be a part of that, and that's no longer happening. Now we've had to kind of go with what we can, and so we're seeing more Pride events online, things that are happening in the community. And we were just talking before this, here in Los Angeles, Pride weekend is this weekend, and instead of obviously Pride celebrations, they have decided to do a protest, and an all Black Lives Matter protest that will take the route of the original Pride parade of Los Angeles. And so we'll probably start to see that a little bit. Now, again, immunocompromised individuals, people who maybe work with immunocompromised individuals that can't go out and be with people because of that, is going to also cause a little bit of not just like FOMO, fear of missing out, but definitely a little bit more isolation, maybe a little bit more depression and anxiety, or even anxiety of even going to these events outside and being with people. So we want to make sure that what we're doing and how we're supporting our clients through this time is how do we get those resources for them to at least feel a little bit more connected. You can change the slide. So as we know, and many of you already know who've been to my talks before, who've been to LGBT 101 talks, know that the LGBT youth face increased risk of anxiety, depression, self-esteem, trauma, suicidality. And, it's important, and what I definitely try to do in the world is, create positive social connections, which help to boost confidence. And one of the issues I've come across is that if now being stuck at home, and I'm sure Amanda and Sarah will get into this from a young adult perspective, is that, for youth who can't maybe school and being out of their houses is better for them because they're in non-affirming houses at home. They're feeling stuck. Obviously, the suicide hotlines for Trans Lifeline, Trevor Project have increased because maybe a kiddo is not affirmed in their identity, whether it's their sexual identity, or maybe the parents are unwilling to use the correct pronouns and the correct name, and that's so they're in homes that are abusive. And I don't know about you, but I know that there's been increased activity of individuals wanting and needing mental health. And for us as practitioners who only have a certain capacity to hold this space and also the time, we don't know. It's really important for us to know more, to increase our network for people, because there's a lot more crisis happening. There's a lot more, the volume of crisis that's happening that they don't have access to school, crisis centers, clubs, community centers that they can normally go to. So many of them are seeking us online. Change that. Transgender youth specifically, we know that like I already said, the names and pronouns, but when we're asking them to be online, and what happens is sometimes I'm looking at myself right now, I'm looking at all of you, and I see myself, and if I have any dysphoria around what I look like, this can increase anxiety, this can increase shame, this can increase because they're having to look at their physical appearance. Now, as a clinician who works specifically with trans clients, especially with our IOP kids online, and we have to maybe understand that they don't want to see themselves. So sometimes I have them change to their avatar or to a picture of, that they want to show, that they want to see, that they're okay with seeing. And that can be difficult as a clinician who likes to see emotions, expressions, and I can understand that can be difficult. However, I'm going to get more out of a kid if they're more comfortable being online and being able to speak from their heart rather than having to see themselves. So another issue that we're running into is that trans kids or trans people in general are having their surgeries delayed. We're obviously starting to see more doctors and surgeries start to, even in the last couple of weeks, because they're deemed elective, a lot of gender affirming surgeries have been put off. So even people who've been waiting years to get surgery or been on wait lists now have seen that taken away from them, which I can't really explain the depth of what it feels like to be on the other side of the line when someone calls you or shares with you that they've been waiting for years and now they have to wait longer and they don't know if they can wait much longer, and the distress that causes, and also to have a life-saving procedure be deemed as elective, because these are, in my experience, life-saving procedures, whatever gender affirming surgery that is. And also the access to hormones can be put off as well. Maybe the doctor's offices are overwhelmed or closed, or they need to see you, or they need to do blood work. So everything has been the delay of access to medical, interventions has caused a significant increase in distress. And for many of us, it's just really important. This is kind of this slide is kind of just shares what I said, but that these psychological traumas of delaying necessary interventions will definitely increase, and we have seen the increase in suicidality and suicide and mental health issues. Just a little bit about kind of pre-existing conditions for individuals. We actually, I don't know if we had it on here last time, but there's LGBTQ people are in general are at significantly higher risk of substance use, 200 times more likely to be addicted to nicotine. And though those aren't pre-existing conditions, as a factor of just COVID, can increase their, increase the, overdoses, increase suicidality, and it should be considered a COVID-19 related issue. Obviously, immunosuppressed individuals, so individuals with HIV and cancer in the LGBT community, means that compromised health, they could be at greater risk for either contracting COVID or not getting through COVID in a healthy way. So that's really important to know about these pre-existing conditions. Just a little bit about us, and I'll pass it off to Amanda. Obviously, as you know, I work at Visions Adolescent Treatment Center, and we're doing all the protocols. All of our COVID-19 protocols are in place. Our IOP is completely virtual. We also, overall, just in an LGBT, I think sometimes we only focus on LGBT individuals when it comes to sex ed, and we talk about sex and gender as it relates to LGBT people, but we have inclusive sex education for all of our clients, and we've had to get creative. Here in California, we're just opening up again a little bit, so a lot of our outside activities have been compromised as well. So we've had to kind of come up with creative exercise and movement experiences for the teens to kind of get them out and moving and connected. And but luckily, we're seeing more hiking trails, beaches opening, and things like that. But obviously, they always go with masks and things like that. For our LGBTQ population, we have virtual trans and non-binary support groups for LGBTQ teens and trans and non-binary teens. We address all the issues of online platforms, like I talked about, the avatars and things like that with our IOP teens who may be struggling with dysphoria. We have a virtual support group every Monday for the parents of LGBTQ teens, and that is open to all families. They don't have to be part of our system. I have families from all over the world actually coming and in support of, and also just getting knowledge of when their kid comes out or whatever they may be going through. We have mentors that are specific to our teens who are part of the communities, because I believe that mentorship is an important aspect of this community building. A lot of our kids have never had a trans adult or a gay adult in their life that can help them succeed and feel more connected to the world around them. And I just shared before this that next weekend I'm having a huge pride event for my teens who are in treatment. I have bought so much rainbow stuff. I don't know. I just like my car is filled. So I just appreciate this time. I'm going to pass it off to Amanda so that we can answer some questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Beck. Thanks so much. And thanks everybody for being here. Such a important topic for a presentation. I think we, like everybody, like Beck has talked about, we did this presentation about a month ago, and due to popular demand, we are doing it again. And in just a month, the world has changed again tremendously. I feel like we keep kind of getting the rug pulled out, and the constant is that about 10 to 8 weeks ago, 8 to 10 weeks ago, when coronavirus was really starting to take off, we as a dorm community sat down and started thinking about, in transitioning care to a virtual platform, which populations that we work with were going to be particularly vulnerable. And the answer by and large was all of them to some extent, but for different reasons and different sort of considerations had to be really processed and understood, and action steps needed to be taken in order to accommodate for the vulnerabilities of certain populations. And one of those populations was our LGBTQ plus community. I think that, an already marginalized group being placed into a position where they are alone and isolated in either their own apartments, or even worse, sometimes with non-affirming family members, is particularly distressing, and not having the social supports and social contacts, and even the hugs and the touches and, all of those sort of day-to-day contacts that we take for granted, all of a sudden you don't have them, and it has a huge impact on mental health and well-being. So when we were thinking about going virtual, we really wanted to put into place additional supports for this population. One thing that we did was that in addition to their day-to-day schedule, which was going to be the same virtually as it was non-virtually, we wanted to add in a morning and nighttime check-in. Staying on a healthy sleep-wake cycle is hugely important to mental health, and having that accountability of knowing that in the morning your phone's going to ring. It's going to be a friendly, affirming voice who's going to say, as nicely yet as in a very stern voice, time to get up, guys. I am your alarm clock, and it's time to get up and start your day. And no pulling the sheets over your head and staying in bed all day. That's not something that we're going to support, even during COVID-19. And then another friendly voice at the end of the day, checking in and just sort of taking stock of the day. What went well today? What maybe didn't go as well, but can go better tomorrow. And then setting our clients up for a healthy sleep routine was something that we did for all of our clients, beginning and the end of the day. All of our process meetings and our specific LGBTQ plus process meetings were taken onto a virtual platform. Trans and non-binary process groups and parent groups were also taken to a virtual platform. We have noticed that our parents have needed so much more support right now because a lot of them have their young adult LGBTQ plus children living in their home for the first time in a while because they have left college campuses. They didn't want their children sheltering in place in New York City or Washington, D.C. They wanted them coming home. And a lot of education has needed to be done with the parents around communication, affirming communication, and just seeing, more conflict in the home environment. So we've increased our parent support one-on-one. We also increased our self-care and wellness programming. We've recognized, and our clients have certainly given us the feedback, and I think we've all experienced this as providers, that sitting in back-to-back Zoom sessions on a daily basis is exhausting. It is mentally, emotionally, and physically exhausting. It's important to schedule time in the day to get up and move and take a walk, to do meditation, to do yoga, to exercise. And we have purposefully and strategically built in virtual exercise, yoga groups, movement groups into the daily routine so that clients have opportunities to do that. We've also increased the number of social groups that we offer, and also opportunities to do service, to do volunteering. Like Beck talked about at the beginning, not having those social opportunities is very difficult for this population. And while, not having that face-to-face contact is certainly harmful, and virtual contact is not exactly the same, it is certainly better than no contact. And we are firm believers that social distancing does not have to lead to social isolation. We just have to get a little bit creative on our virtual platforms, and we've done that. So every night of the week, including weekends, we have some type of virtual social opportunity, whether that's movie nights, board game nights, card game nights. We've had pet show and tells. We've had talent shows. We actually really take our cues from the clients who tell us what they want to do socially, virtually, and we found that they're much better at it than we are. So we sort of go along for the ride and learn a lot from them. We also are having a virtual Pride/anti-prom celebration that, again, the clients have really taken the lead on this and setting this up. It's our job to hear them and make what they want to happen come to fruition, and then, join them in the process. We have ramped up weekend supports. We recognize that during non-COVID-19 times, many of our clients like to have a little bit more free time on the weekends and to begin to develop their own sense of agency over their social lives. Right now, they have struggled with being able to make some of that come to fruition. So we offer stuff on weekends, both at night and during the day, so that they can participate in dorm-related social activities. And then, the last thing that I want to talk about is that, our LGBTQ plus community is so socially minded and have a passion for social justice in its various forms. And we really wanted to try to figure out a way to connect taking care of self with also doing service for others. And what we decided on as a community is to start something that we call the Dorm Impact, where for every client that shows up to anything, an individual session, a group session, a family session, a yoga session, a Zumba session, a virtual Pride event, anytime that they show up to anything, we will donate $1 to a cause of our choice. So we've had a couple different causes that we've sort of picked each month as COVID-19 has progressed through the months. But we found that our clients really embrace knowing that in showing up for themselves, they're also contributing to a greater good. So I think this is one of the sort of silver linings and the takeaways from this is I think that there's certain things that we've set up during this very stressful and sort of surreal time that we can take with us ongoing. And I think that's really important. And then this slide just sort of shows a sample schedule, a day in the life. This schedule would really be for a client who's with us more intensively. And as you can see, from 8:30 in the morning until 9 at night, there's structure and there's routine and there's accountability and there's self-care and there's fun and there's opportunities for laughing and supporting one another and just finding that, that healthy balance, I think has been super important for all of our clients, but especially important for our LGBTQ community. And now I'm going to turn over the tip section to Sarah Harte.
Thanks, Amanda. Back to us. So my tip is to share some of the learning we've had over the last couple of months working with our LGBTQ plus clients and just giving some ideas about how we can be of support to those folks and give you all some tools to think about as you're working to support any clients that you're working with. One of the things that we just know is so important is the idea of connection, and connection needs to happen regardless of pandemics. It needs to happen especially in the midst of collective moments like we're in fighting against police brutality and in support of Black Lives Matter movement. It absolutely is the foundation of Pride Month and the Pride movement. So we really are working and pushing our clients to find ways to connect, even though the connection might need to be a little bit different than it was last year during Pride Month or, in the previous months to the pandemic. So we take it really seriously that social distancing doesn't mean social isolation. And we really ask our clients to be creative about finding ways to connect with each other online. Obviously, I think back to March when we, my own personal experience as a therapist, I never imagined I would spend my whole day looking at a computer screen, but here we are having learned the blessings and curses of Zoom and online meetings. And so one of the things that I know to be true for us as a community, that we've actually been able to connect with more people than I personally have been professionally for the last couple of years, because we're doing these kinds of things like roundtables with you all today. And I think that's also an opportunity for our clients too, by finding communities they can join online, maybe having access for maybe one of the first times to, folks in different cities around the world who share identities, share concerns, share passions, and finding those chosen families, those friend networks is so crucial. As we're finding ways to connect, we're really encouraging people to identify what their feelings are, how to manage their feelings, and ways to process and utilize their feelings for continuing to heal on their own journey, or even be, as I think a lot of people have been over the last couple of weeks, using feelings of despair or rage or hurt to fight against systems of injustice. And so actually that's been a really productive place that our clients can find themselves being outside of their own suffering and really connecting with other people's sufferings and fighting on behalf of them, using whatever privilege they might have to move the agenda forward. One thing that we also focus on is really making sure that we're in a healthy routine, as Amanda was talking about, the AM wake ups and getting online or coming together as a group first thing in the morning is really important, because we know young adults often wait till they have a thing to get up for before they get up. So I know on college campuses that often looks like, my first class isn't until 11:10, so I'll get up at 11 and throw on some clothes and run across campus to my class. Why get up earlier than that if I don't have a class before 11? Well, what we know is that getting into routines and having sustainable routines, even in the midst of schedule changes, even in the midst of a pandemic, is really, really important. So that's where our AM start times, our breakfast groups, and gathering together to set some intentions for the day is really important. We're also really, talking with our clients about how to use media in a way that is healthy. So I just spent some time talking about Zoom, the good things and bad things. We're recognizing that Zoom fatigue is real, and it does need to be addressed with movement and getting off the computer. Same thing happens with engaging with communities online. So that might be through social media, through discussion boards, other kinds of online gaming communities, whatever it might be. And so there are good things and bad things about all of those places. And we want people to identify how to use them for support and how to use them for good and not for evil. That means that if there are aspects of social media or other online platforms that are harmful or that we need to take breaks from, that we need to step away. The troll situation online is real, and we need to be mindful about how we're exposing ourselves to some of that material. Same thing with graphic material online, that sort of stuff. So that's an area where we're really helping people think about thoughtfully using connection as a practice for self-care, but also being mindful about what they're exposing themselves to. That really relates to self-care and being compassionate to yourself. It's really important to take care of your body, keeping a focus on the fundamentals around, cultivating time to help your mind, your spirit, and your body, in whatever way that looks for any individual. And so, sometimes our self-care practices get kind of stale, and people kind of do the same thing over and over and over again. There may be somebody who says, I don't feel good unless I get to my gym and work out every single day or in the morning or most days of the week. And then what happens when their gym closes? It's like, oh my God, my one thing that I really relied on is not there for me anymore. So we're thinking about how can we expand the list of self-care? How can we expand the ways that we take care of our body and think about it more holistically? So that includes, thinking about how we're feeding ourselves. We've had to be really flexible about feeding ourselves in different ways. Some folks are really reliant on restaurants and prepared meals, which was hard to access. I know in my neighborhood, we're starting to see some restaurants reopen and start to have some sidewalk cafes and things like that, which I'm really looking forward to myself, because I'm getting kind of tired of the meals that I've been preparing. But that I was really forced to get more creative with how I prepared my food, fed my body, and that's the case for our clients as well. We also know that not all body movement feels the same for any one person. So especially thinking about issues of body dysmorphia in the LGBTQ community and just in general, not any one kind of exercise fits any one kind of person. So being mindful about, even if it's gentle stretching, taking a walk, thinking about ways that people can engage with body movement that maximizes the benefit and minimizes any discomfort that people have. And then what we really know is that, this is really pandemic, times of civil unrest and collective trauma is a time to really focus on taking care of emotional and physical well-being. So as Beck was saying, the experience of having your quote unquote elective healthcare postponed or delayed in a way so disruptive to folks who've been waiting for this moment for years. And so we want to be able to find ways that we can help advocate for our clients to get the gender affirming care that they need, and see if there's ways that we can help advocate for these things to move forward on a timeline that is safer for people. But also that includes checking in with people on a mental health care level as well. So we're really prioritizing making sure that our clients, and I would include anybody who needs any kind of mental health support, to really regularly connect with their therapist online, via phone. And now, as we're starting to open up, contemplating when will it be safe to do that in person. And for some folks, it's time now. That Zoom has a beautiful place in teletherapy. It helps people access care differently than they ever have. But it also has some limitations. So getting back together in person with the 6 feet distance and the mask is a new type of therapy. I know it's the first time for me, but having had a few in-person sessions recently, I'm really enjoying being able to be in the same room as my clients again, even with a mask and even with that 6 foot distance. On that note, I want to just say thank you for your